Hello. In this video, I'll be drawing inside of my people sketchbook. I gave it this name because it's a sketchbook in which I draw people. I only draw people inside. It's an exercise that I came up with in order to try and improve my anatomy. Because one of my goals this year is getting better at anatomy and experimenting a bit more with my art. I think it's really nice to keep sketchbooks for specific purposes, like a bunch of different sketchbooks for different things you want to draw inside. I personally have a ton of sketchbooks. I really love drawing inside of sketchbooks, and helps me it helps me to not mix things up because I draw a lot. So as I just said, this one is a sketchbook that I got to draw people inside. The main goal is to get better at drawing figures and grasping the anatomy of people. And the second goal is to be more intentional with all the lines that I draw. So, in order to do that, I came up with a rule of only using non erasable tools inside of the sketchbook in order to build more confidence in my line and also in order not to erase every minor details that I'm not happy with because I know how it goes. Plus, I don't really want to spend too long on every drawing, and I know that if I have the opportunity to erase stuff, I will do it. I will do it even if I tell myself not to. So, using pens to draw just makes it easier to not erase it because I can't. Also, since I can't go back and erase every minor details, I have to be more careful and pay more attention to each line that I draw. It helps me practicing being more decisive with my line work and also not struggling to get the perfect line by redrawing the same line over and over for like 10 minutes. I usually don't really pay much attention to lines since in my regular process I mostly use watercolor, so I focus more on the shapes that I make with the paint after the initial sketch. And by the end of the drawing, most lines that I drew at the beginning have disappeared anyway, so I don't give them much attention. But I've been wanting to be able to produce drawings that could stand out with their line art only, or at least putting an emphasis on the line art rather than not caring about it. I also always felt a bit jealous of this artist that could draw this amazing, nice, and clean drawing directly with the pen without any sketch. Like you're seeing a bunch of this video on social media. Not that there's anything wrong with sketching beforehand, but it just looks so cool being able to draw on the spot something that looks nice without having to sketch. And for some reason, I had assumed that I would never be able to do the same, but I realized that it's a skill you can get through practicing, like most skills. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm trying to go for a more epurated style with just a few lines to convey the main shapes and ID. Well, I still end up coloring while I'm drawing, but I'm still focusing a lot on the lines. So, well, that's the main goal. That's the main idea here. As for my usual process when I'm drawing inside of this sketchbook, well, to begin with, I don't have any kind of schedule. I just draw when I feel like it because I don't want it to feel like it's a core, a char, a core. I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't want it to feel like it's something that I'm obligated to do. I still want to have fun with it. And for the references, I'm usually looking them out on Pinterest. So I do keep a folder where I always save interesting looking people or pose or visual, and then I either go through it and I pick pictures that interest me on the spot in the moment, Or I just go through Pinterest and I scroll up until I find a picture that I enjoy. I usually start by drawing one person that I find interesting, and then depending on how I'm feeling and the amount of energy that I have left, I'll either stop there or I'll look for more interesting people to draw. And I have a lot of fun figuring out the layout of the different people that I'm drawing inside of the sketchbook, which, by the way, is happening on this spread since I decided to draw multiple people. Also, I try to keep the tools that I use limited in order to mainly focus on the line art first and then experimenting more without getting lost in the bajillion possibilities of colors or material that I could use. I think it's if you're working traditionally, I guess it might be similar with digital art, but since I'm not into digital art, I can't really know for sure. But when working traditionally, you have so many different tools you can use. It can easily become overwhelming, and then you end up overthinking it and losing time thinking about what you can use instead of actually drawing. So I decided to only use 2 to 3 different colors and around 3 main supplies, whether it will be pen or colored pencils, or even paint sometime. I do use a bit of paint. Also, using a restricted color palette allows me to explore different color combination pretty in depth, and that's also really fun. So I started doing this back in, I think it was March or May 2024. That's when I got the sketchbook. It was pretty hard at first because I'm not used to drawing like this at all. I think before that, oh no, I do keep another sketchbook where I only draw with a pen, but most of the time when I'm drawing, I'm sketching beforehand with a pencil. So it was pretty hard to switch from using pencils to mostly drawing only with a pen instead of the sketchbook. It was pretty hard at first to draw for prolonged period of time with non-erasable tools because I'm not used to it. Usually I I do draw with pens only, but before that it only used to be small sketches. I wouldn't spend that much time on drawing. I would produce with pens. But inside of the sketchbook, obviously since I'm drawing more and also more elaborate drawings, it's taking more time. So it's a lot of focus, but it gets easier with time. It's also usually pretty relaxing. I love doing it when I want to draw, but not want to think too much because I just draw based off the reference. And since I can't go back by erasing what I drew, I don't really have the time to overthink. Like, once you put down your line, you have to think about which one you'll put afterwards because you can't erase it anyway. So that's really fun. Now, I want to talk about choosing a sketchbook to do something like that. I know drawing inside of sketchbooks can be really intimidating. Just the thought of having to feel it can be a lot sometimes. Also, if you're not really familiar with sketchbook, I can imagine how overwhelming it can be because you have so many different brands, so many like they come in so many different shape and size. There's so many different kind of paper you can choose from. It really is a lot. So my advice to start would be to get a small and cheap sketchbook. When I say small, I mean max A5 because these are really good. And you can find also a lot of smaller ones like A6, A7. And also not a really thick one, so one that doesn't have a lot of pages because the smaller it is, the less intimidating it is. It won't be as daunting to try and fill it because you won't have as many pages. Also, the cheaper it is, the less guilty you'll feel about drawing random stuff inside. Not that you can draw random stuff in a pricey sketchbook, but from experience and also from hearing other artists' experience with sketchbook, I know that when you buy an expensive sketchbook, you do have a pressure of drawing nice art inside, and then sometimes you might end up not even using it ever because you never feel like what you're drawing will be good enough to fit inside of the sketchbook. So, yeah, a cheap one is good. I also think a cheap sketchbook is a good entry point into the sketchbook world because honestly, you can find so many different ranges of prices. So I mean, right away, I'd say you shouldn't buy you shouldn't buy an expensive sketchbook if you don't even know if you'll like it or not. Because something that happened to me personally is that a few years ago, after I got really into watercolor, I bought this one A5 watercolor sketchbook. It was pretty expensive because the name of the brand I think is Hanimula. It's this really expensive watercolor paper brand, but I mean, watercolor paper is expensive already. But still, the sketchbook was pretty expensive. It was A5 one, and I thought that it would be nice for me to buy it because I'm really into painting with watercolor, so I would make a good use of it. But what ended up happening is that I got the sketchbook and I almost never drew inside because I was aware of how pricey it was and I wanted to take my time to figure out what I wanted to draw inside of the sketchbook. I didn't want to just sketch random things because I thought that I would be wasting the paper since it was super pricey. So I only drew a tiny bit inside here and there, only to find out that I don't even enjoy painting with watercolor inside of sketchbooks. Like I realized that I'd rather paint with watercolor on paper, but not on inside of a sketchbook. So now I still have it. I still have a bunch of pages that I haven't used, and honestly, it's not that it's a bad sketchbook. It's a good one, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. So I kinda regret buying it. I'll try to finish it one of these days, but yeah. Anyway, I just want to say you probably shouldn't buy expensive sketchbooks blindly. Okay, that was a pretty long sidetrack. So now going back to the actual sketchbook that I'm using inside of the video. So since when I bought it, I had only planned to use pens inside. I didn't really care much about the paper because, depending on the paper thickness, and the paper quality, it can withstand different supplies. That's why also, by the way, watercolor paper is so expensive. But anyway, yeah, I didn't care much for the paper. It's only 90 gram. The paper is only 90 gram. It's really thin, almost translucent sometimes, but surprisingly resistant. I was so surprised because, uh, well, I started using ink and paint inside of the sketchbook, and it's not even bleeding. It's not bleeding. It's so good. It's really a good deal, I think, the price, for the price I paid at least. I think it's a really good deal for the thickness and the price. The quality is super good. I think I only paid two to 90, €2 and 90 cents for this. If you're interested, it's the Crok'book by Clairefontaine, And the size that I got, it's 17 by 22 centimeters and has 48 pages. If I find the link, I'll put it in the description or I'll just write the reference, but it's honestly such a good sketchbook. And by the way, I'm almost done with it, so hopefully I can make a sketchbook tour pretty soon. I would love to do that. I've never made one, but I love watching sketchbook tours video on YouTube. And since I have a bunch of sketchbook, I think I might as well just share them because I'm also forgetting the things that I'm drawing. So, uh, maybe it will be nice for me, for myself to go through them again. Something else that I wanted to talk about is the fact that art takes time. Making art takes time. And I feel like we're kind of forgetting this, especially with the way um it's been shared on social media. Okay, I only share art on Instagram, well, a tiny bit on TikTok too, but TikTok doesn't really count. I'm just doing it for fun. I mean, I'm doing it for fun on Instagram too, but TikTok it's more I'm sharing it when I randomly feel like it. But on Instagram, I know a lot of artists have been complained about the way the algorithm treats artists, and I totally agree with the sentiment. We've been made to share only one tiny glimpse of our art, and this one tiny glimpse always has to be so good looking, never showing all the things that are happening in the background in the process. I mean, the whole point of Instagram is having picture that would appeal to most people. So nice looking pictures. And I have to say, I don't really like how in the end it feels like the process is not worth seeing because it's not good looking enough to be shared online or at least on Instagram. And even though, yeah, a lot of artists are sharing their process as they're painting or drawing in their story, afterwards, once they post the final piece, most of the time it doesn't include the process. In the end, what you'll see when you look at a majority of artists' profile is just the finished piece and not all the thought and process that went into it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I myself really enjoy having just a collection of my final pieces on Instagram, but I do find it a bit sad because a lot of time and thoughts go into creating any illustration or art piece. And I find it so interesting to hear from the person who created the art piece themselves why they did it that way. And I'm pretty sure a lot of artists would want to share this information more, but they don't feel like Instagram is actually a good fit to do this type of things because of the algorithm and also just because of the way we're made to consume content on Instagram specifically. We're always going from one post to the other without really taking the time to pause and appreciate what we're seeing. And I'm speaking for experience because I myself am doing that and I would like to change this. The main reason why I have Instagram is, well, at first it was just to share my art. Now it's more just to see different artists and what they're doing and save the art pieces that I enjoy so that I can go back and look at them. And something that I realized is that I have an art folder full of illustration on Instagram that I've been saving for a very long time. And there are so many amazing looking illustration, but I never take the time to actually go through it and really look at these illustrations. And honestly, most of them I haven't even looked at it for a full minute because there's just so many amazing looking art on Instagram that every time I go on the app, I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of things I have access to, and I just end up going through them really quickly. So I would definitely like to change this about the way I consume art on Instagram. Something else that I wanted to talk about regarding the way art is being shared is that I feel like we might have some type of standardization of what good art is. It might be just my own personal interpretation. Perhaps people might not agree with me, which I would be totally fine with. But I feel like we're often being shown the same type of art, perhaps because of the algorithm. Like the way the algorithm works, if I'm not wrong, is that on different social media, the idea is to pick up what you're into and to only feed you these things you're into. So if you're into a specific way of doing art, then they'll mostly show you this specific way of making art you're into, which can be a good thing, but at the same time, I want to see different way of doing things. Honestly, don't think there's a right way of making art. Like you can just make it however you want to. But depending on what you're exposed to, it might feel like there's only one way of doing specific things, which is why I was really shocked when I downloaded this one application called Red Note. Maybe you've heard about it. It's from China. Red Note is the English name. In China, I think they call it Xiaohongshu, and it's basically the equivalent of Instagram or TikTok. And there's also a bunch of different things you can find there. But I got the app and I just started going through the different art posts, and I was really amazed to see how different the art that is being shared on this app is from the art that is being shared on Instagram. Whether it's the type of subject, the colors they're using, or even the materials they're using, it's so interesting. Like I really felt like I was in a new dimension. I didn't know people could make art like this. So it was really cool to see it. I also watched a really interesting video from the artist and YouTuber Airi Pan. The title of the video is Make Your Colors Serve. Honestly, you should look at it. It's so interesting. You could go and watch the video yourself. But basically, she was explaining how the environment we have around us is feeding us and is influencing our art, which makes sense. But oftentimes when I'm on Instagram, since I'm always seeing the same type of things from either Europe or the US, I often forget that, well, the art that I'm making doesn't have to look like the art that other people are making. And it's fine if I just did my own way, if it's a bit or a lot experimental actually. And as long as I have fun, it's fine. With the last inspiration that I wanted to talk about, it's a video that I watched today actually. I watched it today. I don't remember the name of the person who posted it, but I'll link it in the description. It's someone that was working on a zine project, an art zine, among other things. But she was mainly working on this project doing the video, and she was showing how she did it, and then she showcased the final product once she received it. So it was really refreshing to see her art scene, the one she came up with. First of all, the theme, it was centered about the Dracula book. I don't know who it was written by, but she focused her zine around the book, and throughout the zine you see a lot of quotes from the book that she enjoyed. And something else that I really liked was how she drew in a bunch of different art styles. You'll find fully painted gouache piece, small ink sketches, and also graphite portraits. It's so diversified. It looks really cool. And honestly, it made me want to do the same. So the bottom line is that it's fine to have fun when making art, especially in your sketchbook, I'd say. But even outside of sketchbooks, it's fine to do it however you want to, even if it doesn't look like the conventional way of doing art. As long as you enjoy it, it's fine. I ended up talking quite a lot. I hope it made sense. Still, I had fun, so I hope it was interesting to listen to. I also had fun drawing the spread in my sketchbook. So, yeah, that's it for me today. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.